September 1945, Camp Douglas, Wyoming. The high desert plains stretch endlessly beneath brilliant blue skies, their vast emptiness interrupted only by rows of military barracks and the distant mountains that form the camp's natural perimeter. Inside one of the administrative buildings, a Japanese woman named Akiko Tanaka stands before a blackboard for the very first time in her life as a prisoner. The chalk in her trembling hands feels foreign and strange, a simple tool that represents something far more profound than anyone observing would immediately understand. On the blackboard, written in careful English letters, are words she never expected to encounter. "Welcome to English class, free instruction. All women invited." Akiko reads the words again, certain she must be misunderstanding the translation. In her experience as a Japanese woman raised in wartime Japan, education was a luxury reserved for specific social classes, and certainly not something offered to prisoners of war. Yet here, surrounded by other Japanese women equally shocked and confused, she stands at the threshold of something that will fundamentally transform her understanding of her captors and of the world beyond Japan. The story of Japanese women, prisoners of war learning English in American camps, represents one of the most remarkable yet overlooked chapters of World War II. These women arrived at American facilities expecting brutality, expecting hardship, expecting the worst treatment that wartime enemies could inflict. What they encountered instead challenged everything they had been taught about America and Americans. The journey that led these Japanese women to American soil began in the desperate final months of the Pacific War, when Japanese military forces retreated before advancing American armies. As American forces captured territory across the Pacific, they encountered not only Japanese military personnel, but also Japanese civilians and women serving in auxiliary military roles. These women had served as nurses, medical personnel, communications specialists, clerical workers, and in various other capacities supporting Japanese military operations. Some were volunteers who had enthusiastically participated in the war effort. Others had been conscripted through mandatory service requirements that gave them little choice in the matter. Their capture was often sudden and traumatic, occurring when American forces overran positions they occupied, or when Japanese installations fell to advancing American armies. The initial processing of Japanese women prisoners revealed the profound impact of Japanese wartime propaganda on their psychological state and expectations. These women expected degradation at best and systematic abuse at worst. The propaganda they had absorbed throughout their lives had painted Americans as barbaric enemies, interested only in conquest and destruction. They had been told that American soldiers engaged in systematic rape of enemy women, that American forces committed atrocities against prisoners, that American captivity meant certain suffering and probable death. Many Japanese women chose suicide over capture, jumping from cliffs or choosing death rather than face what they believed would be their inevitable fate at American hands. Those who were captured survived this psychological trauma expecting daily horrors. The initial shock of discovering that American soldiers did not abuse them, did not degrade them, and instead provided food and medical care, created profound psychological dislocation. The women struggled to reconcile propaganda they had absorbed with the reality of their treatment. The contrast between expectations and reality was so profound that some women initially believed the American kindness was part of an elaborate psychological manipulation scheme designed to break their resistance. The decision to allow Japanese women prisoners to attend English language classes emerged from the practical concerns and humanitarian instincts of American camp commanders. As the war ended and military objectives shifted from warfare to occupation and reconstruction, American military leadership began considering the long-term implications of maintaining Japanese prisoners. The question naturally arose regarding what would happen to these women after the war ended. Would they remain imprisoned indefinitely? Would they be repatriated to Japan? How could they be prepared for whatever came next? Some American commanders recognized that providing educational opportunities during imprisonment could serve multiple purposes. It would occupy prisoners' time productively. It would improve their mental health and psychological well-being during captivity. It would provide them with skills that might be valuable after they returned to Japan. Most importantly, it represented a recognition of their fundamental humanity and dignity as individuals, rather than merely as prisoners of war. The decision to offer free English language instruction reflected American military values regarding respect for human dignity, even in wartime circumstances. The announcement of English classes generated shock and confusion throughout the Japanese women prisoner populations. News of the opportunity spread through the camps like wildfire, communicated through whispered conversations, through notes passed between barracks, through careful verbal communication that maintained discipline while conveying the remarkable information. Women debated whether this was some kind of trick or psychological operation. Surely the Americans would not genuinely offer educational opportunities without expecting something in return. Surely there must be some hidden purpose or obligation associated with accepting such an opportunity. Yet as more information emerged and rumors were confirmed by camp officials, growing numbers of Japanese women decided to participate. The decision to enroll in English classes represented a profound act of courage for many women who had been taught that learning enemy languages was a betrayal of their nation. Yet the opportunity represented something more powerful than propaganda and national loyalty. It represented hope, possibility, and the chance to improve themselves and their future prospects. The first English classes at Camp Douglas assembled a diverse group of Japanese women representing different educational backgrounds and capabilities. Some had attended secondary schools in Japan and possessed basic academic foundations. Others had limited educational exposure and struggled with fundamental concepts. Some were motivated by intellectual curiosity and genuine desire to learn. Others saw English language skills as potentially valuable for employment and survival after they returned to Japan. Still others participated simply to break the monotony and psychological weight of imprisonment. The American instructors assigned to teach English to Japanese women prisoners were often American military personnel with some educational background or professional teachers drafted into military service. Many approached the task with genuine dedication and commitment, recognizing that they were providing more than language instruction. They were offering hope and demonstrating American values regarding education and human dignity. Some instructors specifically chose to teach Japanese prisoners because they believed such work represented a meaningful contribution to the long-term peace and reconciliation that would need to occur between America and Japan. The pedagogical approach to teaching English to Japanese women prisoners differed significantly from conventional classroom instruction. The instructors could not rely solely on conventional textbooks or educational materials designed for mainstream English students. The women possessed different background knowledge and different motivations for learning. The classes needed to bridge not only linguistic gaps but also cultural differences and the psychological trauma of warfare and captivity. The instructors emphasized practical vocabulary and communication skills that would be immediately useful in their daily lives at the camps. They taught women how to read basic English signs and documents, how to understand simple commands and instructions, how to conduct basic conversations with American guards and camp personnel. Beyond practical vocabulary, the classes incorporated elements of American culture, history, and values. Students learned about American government, American democratic principles, and American society through their English language study. This cultural transmission served multiple purposes. It helped students understand the nation that held them captive. It exposed them to alternative systems of political organization and social values. Most importantly, it demonstrated through education and open discussion that America respected freedom of thought and expression even during wartime. Akiko Tanaka found herself particularly motivated to excel in her English classes. As one of the more educated Japanese women in the camp, with prior secondary school attendance and natural aptitude for languages, she progressed rapidly through the curriculum. Her American instructor, a woman named Margaret Sullivan who had been a high school English teacher before her military service, took particular interest in Akiko's development and potential. Sullivan recognized that Akiko possessed not merely linguistic capability, but genuine intellectual curiosity about the wider world and about America specifically. After class sessions, Sullivan began making herself available for extended conversations with Akiko, conversations that went far beyond formal language instruction into discussions of American culture, American values, and American perspectives on various subjects. These informal conversations were profoundly transformative for Akiko. For the first time, she encountered American perspectives articulated by an educated American woman, rather than through the distorting lens of Japanese propaganda. She heard American perspectives on democracy, on women's roles, on individual rights, and on numerous other topics. The conversations challenged her assumptions and required her to reconsider fundamental beliefs she had accepted without question throughout her life. Similar experiences were repeated across the camp as Japanese women engaged in English instruction with American personnel. The instructors and camp staff recognized that many Japanese women prisoners had received limited education, particularly in areas related to critical thinking or exposure to perspectives alternative to official Japanese military and governmental ideology. The English language instruction became a vehicle for exposing these women to different ways of thinking and different cultural values. American instructors encouraged discussion and questions in their classes, asking students to express their own ideas and perspectives rather than simply absorbing information passively. This pedagogical approach was revolutionary for many Japanese women who had been educated in systems that emphasized obedience and absorption of official doctrine without questioning or critical analysis. Some women found the experience liberating, exciting, and empowering. Others found it unsettling and challenging, forcing them to confront ideas and perspectives that contradicted everything they had been taught. Yet across the spectrum of reactions, the women recognized that something significant was occurring. They were being treated not merely as prisoners but as students worthy of education and intellectual development. The practical benefits of English language instruction became apparent as Japanese women progressed in their studies. Those who achieved basic competency in English found themselves qualified for positions within the camps that offered certain advantages and privileges. Some became interpreters assisting camp administrative personnel. Others became informal cultural mediators helping American camp staff understand Japanese customs and perspectives. The most advanced students found themselves in roles that provided intellectual stimulation and meaningful work. Positions as assistant instructors or educational aides made them feel valued and contributed to their sense of purpose during their imprisonment. Beyond the immediate practical benefits, English language instruction provided psychological and emotional benefits for women struggling with the trauma of capture, separation from family, and uncertainty about their futures. Education provided structure and routine to their days. Intellectual engagement provided relief from the psychological weight of imprisonment. The relationships they developed with American instructors and fellow students provided social connection and community. For women who had experienced profound disruption and loss, education and community became vital mechanisms for psychological survival and adaptation. The reactions of Japanese women to American generosity in providing free education ranged across a complex spectrum of emotions. Many women experienced profound gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity. They recognized the contrast between what they had expected and what they actually received. American provision of free education represented not merely a practical opportunity, but a powerful statement about American values and American character. It suggested that Americans respected human dignity and individual potential regardless of wartime enmity. Some women were moved to tears by the recognition of their worth as human beings and students. Others struggled with guilt associated with their gratitude. How could they be grateful to their captors? How could they appreciate kindness from enemies of their nation? This psychological conflict troubled many women, creating internal struggles between their emotional responses to American kindness and their sense of national loyalty and obligation. Some women resolved this conflict by viewing American kindness as weakness or as manipulation. Others resolved it by reconsidering their understanding of nationality, loyalty, and what it meant to be human and dignified. The English classes became spaces where Japanese women could explore ideas and perspectives in ways that their wartime experience in Japan had not permitted. Some women became interested in American literature and poetry, studying works by American authors that expressed ideas and perspectives dramatically different from Japanese literary traditions. Some became fascinated by American history and the American Revolution, recognizing parallels to concepts of freedom and independence that contrasted sharply with Japanese wartime ideology. Some used their English study as a pathway to understanding more about American political systems and democratic principles. The instructors, recognizing the intellectual hunger of many students, often encouraged this exploration and made available books and materials that supported deeper learning. The camps developed small libraries containing English language materials ranging from basic textbooks to American novels, to books about American history and culture. For women living behind barbed wire with an uncertain future, these materials represented psychological escape and intellectual engagement with a larger world beyond their immediate circumstances. One of the most surprising aspects of the English language program was the extent to which American women personnel became genuinely invested in the success of their Japanese women students. Many American military women who taught English had themselves experienced discrimination and limitations based on their gender in American society. Some recognized parallels between their own experiences of constraint and the experiences of Japanese women in a militaristic society that severely restricted women's roles and autonomy. American women instructors sometimes use their teaching as an opportunity to expose Japanese women students to ideas about women's rights, women's education, and women's capabilities that were far more expansive than what Japanese wartime society had permitted. Some American women shared their own experiences of pursuing education and careers in America, describing the possibilities available to women in American society. These conversations had profound impacts on many Japanese women who had been taught that women's proper roles were limited and subordinate to male authority and national interest. The cultural exchanges that occurred through English language instruction extended beyond formal classroom instruction into informal social interaction and relationship building. American camp personnel and Japanese women prisoners attended camp social events together. They participated in entertainment activities and recreational programs jointly. American women invited Japanese women students to their quarters for informal social gatherings, where they could practice English in conversational settings while enjoying refreshments and friendly companionship. These informal social interactions broke down barriers that formal prisoner-guard relationships maintained. Through informal socializing, both groups developed greater understanding and appreciation for one another as individuals, rather than as representatives of hostile nations. American women heard personal stories from Japanese women about their families, their homes, their experiences during the war, their hopes for their futures. Japanese women heard corresponding stories from American women about their lives, their families, their dreams, and their own experiences during the war. These personal narratives created human connections that transcended the framework of war and captivity. The impact of English language instruction on Japanese women's post-war lives extended far beyond their individual circumstances. Women who gained English language competency found themselves uniquely positioned for employment opportunities and roles in post-war Japan and in Japanese-American relations. When Japanese women were repatriated to Japan following the end of American occupation, many carried with them not merely English language skills, but transformed perspectives on America and Americans. These women became cultural bridges between America and Japan during the critical Reconstruction period. Some found employment as interpreters working with American occupation forces or with Japanese businesses engaging in trade with American companies. Others became educators teaching English language and American culture to Japanese students. Still others wrote about their experiences in Japanese publications, describing American treatment of Japanese prisoners in ways that contributed to Japanese understanding of America and Americans during the post-war period. Their testimonies about American kindness and respect for human dignity, coming as they did from women who had expected cruelty, carried particular persuasive power in shaping Japanese public opinion regarding America and Americans. The English language program at Camp Douglas and similar programs at other American prisoner of war camps represented a remarkable commitment to treating prisoners with humanity and respect despite wartime animosity. The programs reflected American military values regarding the proper treatment of prisoners, and American confidence that education and exposure to American values and perspectives would contribute to long-term peace and reconciliation. The programs demonstrated that even in war and captivity, human beings could maintain dignity, provide education, and demonstrate respect for one another across lines of nationality and military opposition. Some Japanese women who participated in English language classes became so proficient in the language and so transformed by their experiences that they eventually immigrated to America in the post-war years. These women settled in American communities, raised families, and became American citizens while maintaining connections to their Japanese heritage. They brought with them English language skills and understanding of American culture acquired during their imprisonment. They also brought transformed perspectives on America and Americans that reflected their experiences of kindness and respect during captivity. These women became living embodiments of the possibility of reconciliation and understanding between former enemies. The broader significance of English language instruction for Japanese women prisoners extended beyond individual educational achievement into implications for post-war international relations and cultural exchange. The program demonstrated that educational opportunity and cultural exchange could serve diplomatic and reconciliation purposes. It showed that treating enemies with respect and providing opportunity for growth and development could create attitudes more conducive to post-war cooperation and peace. The approach contrasted sharply with alternative approaches to prisoner treatment that relied on punishment and degradation. The program provided evidence that American military leadership understood that long-term peace required more than military victory. It required transformation of attitudes and perspectives among populations that had been enemies. Providing educational opportunity and demonstrating respect for human dignity contributed more effectively to this transformation than punishment or degradation would have. The letters that Japanese women prisoners wrote to American friends, instructors, and camp personnel after repatriation provide powerful testimony to the impact of English language instruction and American kindness during their captivity. These letters, preserved in various archives and family collections, reveal the profound gratitude many women felt for their educational opportunities and humane treatment. In many cases, women explicitly mentioned their English classes and their instructors as highlights of their imprisonment experience. They expressed appreciation for American commitment to education and human dignity. They described how their perspectives had been transformed through their study of English and exposure to American culture. Some women described their intention to continue using their English language skills and to maintain connections to English language study after returning to Japan. Others described plans to eventually travel to America or to engage in business or professional activities that would utilize their English capabilities. The letters convey a sense that English language instruction had been transformative, not merely in linguistic terms, but in terms of human growth and transformation. Akiko Tanaka eventually returned to Japan in late 1945, following the end of American military occupation and the repatriation of Japanese prisoners. She carried with her fluency in English that she had achieved through her intensive study in Camp Douglas. She also carried with her transformed perspectives, shaped by her relationships with American instructors and prisoners. She found employment as an interpreter with a Japanese company engaging in trade with American firms. She used her English language skills and understanding of American culture to facilitate business communications and cultural understanding. She married an American businessman who was working in Japan as part of the post-war reconstruction efforts. She eventually immigrated to America and settled in California, where she became a citizen and raised her family. Throughout her life, she maintained gratitude for the English language instruction she had received in the American prisoner of war camp. She often described how that education had quite literally transformed her life and opened possibilities she would never otherwise have experienced. Her story was repeated in various forms by numerous other Japanese women who had participated in English language programs during their captivity. The significance of English language instruction for Japanese women prisoners of war extended. Beyond the individual transformations, it enabled into broader implications for post-war relations between America and Japan. Japan's reconstruction and development of democratic institutions in the post-war period was significantly influenced by Japanese who had been exposed to American culture and values during the war and its immediate aftermath. Japanese women who had learned English and been exposed to American perspectives during captivity contributed to this cultural transformation. They served as cultural interpreters and mediators who could articulate American perspectives and values to Japanese audiences. They helped bridge cultural gaps and contributed to mutual understanding between the nations. The investment of American military establishment in providing education to Japanese prisoners of war, despite being enemies during wartime, demonstrated a commitment to human dignity and long-term peace that went beyond military necessity or rational self-interest. It represented a moral commitment to treating human beings with respect regardless of their status as prisoners or their nationality. The English language programs at American prisoner of war camps, operated during and immediately following World War II, represented one of the most remarkable but overlooked examples of how educational opportunity and cultural exchange could serve purposes of reconciliation and peace building. The programs provided Japanese women prisoners with education that transformed their individual lives and expanded their understanding of the world beyond Japan. The programs exposed these women to American values and perspectives that challenged their previous assumptions and contributed to their personal growth and intellectual development. The programs demonstrated American commitment to human dignity and respect for prisoners, despite wartime antagonism. The programs contributed to post-war reconciliation between America and Japan by creating Japanese individuals who had experienced American kindness and respect, and who could communicate these experiences to their compatriots. The impact of these educational programs extended across decades as women who had studied English in American camps influenced their families, their communities, and their nation's relationships with America through their transformed perspectives and their English language skills. The decision to provide free English language instruction to Japanese women prisoners reflected values that are all too often forgotten in historical discussions of warfare and international conflict. American military leadership recognized that the aftermath of war would require rebuilding relationships and establishing frameworks for peace. They understood that this long-term work of peace building could be served through present actions, demonstrating respect for human dignity and commitment to education. By providing educational opportunity to enemy prisoners, they invested in the human potential of individuals who would eventually return to their homeland and who could carry with them transformed perspectives and skills that might contribute to post-war cooperation and understanding. The English language programs at Camp Douglas and other American prisoner of war camps represented an investment in peace that extended beyond the end of the war into the long-term relationship between nations. This investment bore fruit in the form of Japanese-American cooperation during the Cold War period, in the economic partnership between the nations, and in the cultural exchanges that created mutual understanding and respect. Japanese women prisoners who learned English during their captivity in America became witnesses to American values and American character. They experienced firsthand American commitment to human dignity, American belief in the value of education, American confidence that human beings could transcend national enmities through understanding and respect. These experiences transformed their perspectives and their lives. When they returned to Japan and repatriated communities, they carried these experiences with them. They described to their families, their neighbors, and their communities the kindness they had experienced and the education they had received. Their testimonies contributed to Japanese understanding of America that transcended wartime propaganda and military enmity. Their testimonies contributed to Japanese understanding of America that transcended wartime propaganda and military enmity. Their English language skills contributed to post-war economic and cultural exchanges that benefited both nations. Their transformed perspectives contributed to reconciliation and peace building in the decades following the war. The English language classes offered to Japanese women prisoners in American camps represented one of the truest investments in peace, reconciliation, and human dignity that could have been made during or immediately following World War II.